What it be, what it do, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Off the Dome podcast. This is BallerNation. I'm very happy that you are listening, watching, or whatever the fuck to this podcast right now. I appreciate that a lot. We got a lot to talk about. It is Saturday morning currently where I am located in the world and at the time of this recording. So if I say anything that might be out of date, the chances are you're just watching this a little bit later. But yeah, let's get going. Crazy week. I tried recording this episode 2 days ago, right after the Harden trade happened, but then the audio got all fucked up. And so a 40-minute podcast was for nothing. So that definitely that sucked, but whatever. We're here right now, and I've got my backup audio recording on my phone right now. So if you're listening and the audio is kind of shitty, it's because I'm recording on my phone, and it's not coming out of this thing. But with all that being said, the technicals out of the way, I'm going to talk about the James Harden trade, because even though I did talk about it for 40 minutes, but you guys are never going to hear that because the audio got fucked up, there's still some things that I want to say. And I think that my opinion on the trade has changed a little bit. And so, yeah, I've got no problem. I've got no problem redoing this at all. And also a few days have gone past since then. We've seen some more stuff happening in the NBA. The Clippers are looking really good. The Lakers are looking really good. Those two teams, they look like those are the big two teams in the Western Conference right now. I mean, the Lakers are the favorite right now in the West, but the Clippers are still that team. The Clippers are still a really, really good team, despite what you may want to believe about them. Let's get going. James Harden. We just got traded. He finessed his way out. He finessed his way out of the Houston Rockets. He pulled the Kawhi Leonard and forced a trade on up out of there. Let's break down the entirety of this trade real quick. When it's all said and done, this is what happened in the James Harden deal. The Rockets got Victor Oladipo, Dante Exum. They got the guy whose name I don't know how to pronounce, Rodrian Krukos, whatever his name is. He's that young guy on the Brooklyn Nets. He's an all right player. He was playing in the Rising Stars game, I think it was last year. Not a bad player. They got 3 Brooklyn first round picks in 22, 24, and 26. They got a Milwaukee first round pick that was via Cleveland in the upcoming 2022 NBA draft. That's an unprotected pick. And then they got 4 Brooklyn first round pick swaps in 2022, 23, 25, and 27. Rockets got a whole heck of a lot there. They got a lot there. Most notably all those picks. And of course, Victor Oladipo as well. The Nets, they got James Harden. That's it. The Nets, they gave up a lot. They got James Harden back. The Pacers, when it was all said and done, they got Caris LeVert and a Houston second round pick. And that's for this upcoming draft, I do believe. The Cavs, when it was all said and done, got Jared Allen and Taurean Prince. And I just want to say the Cleveland Cavaliers, they won this trade. If at this moment in time, the Cavs, they won this trade. They have zero downside. They got Taurean Prince and Jared Allen and gave up Dante Exum and a second round and a first round pick that belonged to the Milwaukee Bucks. I mean, I have no idea how they finessed their way into this trade, but they gave up almost nothing and got back Jared Allen and Taurean Prince, 2 guys who could start on the Brooklyn Nets. They I don't know what, like, all the other teams involved had some risk going into that. The Rockets giving up James Harden, that's risky. The Nets giving up their entire future for James Harden, that's a risky move. Even the Pacers giving up Victor Oladipo for Caris LeVert, that could be seen as a risky move, even though I love LeVert. But the Cavaliers giving up fucking Dante Exum and a first round pick that doesn't even belong to them in the first place, and getting back 2 starters for a team that could have won the NBA championship this year in Jared Allen and Taurean Prince, they've won. Like, what the fuck? And now there's talks that they're going to be trading Andre Drummond for some. Well, it's going to be interesting what they can get for Andre Drummond, because he's been going off this year. He's been cleaning up the glass. Last night he dropped 33 points, 23 boards, 3 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks. Just a monster stat line from Andre Drummond. He's very valuable to a lot of teams in the NBA. It's going to be interesting to see what Cleveland can get for Andre Drummond. I think they can get a lot. I think they're going to get. They might get an All-Star this year. I don't know. They could get an All-Star this year. It's going to be interesting to see what they can do with that. But I'm gonna quickly take a look now at each team, like the takeaways I got from each team's perspective. I kind of discussed a little bit from the Cleveland Cavaliers point of view there, but I'm gonna start off with the Houston Rockets. First and foremost, they've improved chemistry. Their chemistry is definitely improved. Getting rid of James Harden. In years past, that was sort of always a thing that didn't allow them to get to the final step, to make the NBA Finals, to get past the Golden State Warriors, to get past the San Antonio Spurs. It was a lot of times it was the chemistry. To get past the Lakers, it's the chemistry. Most notably in those Chris Paul years, when that team was good enough to win an NBA championship, that team could have beaten the Golden State Warriors had Chris Paul not gotten hurt, had there been better officiating down the stretch in Game 7, had they not gone on the biggest cold streak from downtown in NBA history in Game 7. They could have beat the Golden State Warriors, and in the finals they would have beat the Cleveland Cavaliers, because the Cavaliers team was not good. They had LeBron James, and that's it. That's really it. But the chemistry kind of falls apart. And that's a big reason why Chris Paul left, is because why they traded Chris Paul. The chemistry just wasn't really there with James Harden. And yeah, I mean they've chemistry definitely has improved. They have a lot of players who've gotten injured a lot. John Wall, Boogie Cousins, Victor Oladipo. They've all torn the ACL. I mean, it's scary. I don't know how much they're all going to be playing, but I'm gonna set the ceiling at a 6 seed. I think they can be a top 6 seed in the Western Conference if everything goes correct. That's their ceiling for me, and a first round exit. I don't see them winning a playoff round. I think their floor, however, is a 13 seed. This could go shit, and I think that they're kind of building for the future. Christian Wood is that guy. Christian Wood is that guy right now in Houston, where let's build around this man, because he has been balling out this year. He was balling out in Detroit last year in the last 10 or so games. And this year he's picked up right where he's left off, and even better. He's going off right now. He is going off right now. So yeah, that's the Houston Rockets. Improved chemistry. I think their ceiling's a 6 seed out in the first round. Their floor is a 13 seed with their new look team. I mean, they've got great talent. They got Oladipo, John Wall, Boogie Cousins. They got great talent. Tucker, Gordon, and Christian Wood, I just mentioned. Great talent. Let's just see if they can put that all together, and let's see if their players can stay healthy. I think, that's the main thing, is health. The Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets, this is what everyone's talking about. The Brooklyn Nets. Listen, if the Brooklyn Nets can work out chemistry and can work out roles and can have superstars put their egos aside and do what's best for the team and stay positive throughout this journey, game over. It's over. I don't care what the Lakers do. I don't care what the Clippers do. In the Eastern Conference, I don't care what the Bucks do or the Celtics do. If the Brooklyn Nets can get the chemistry together, can get Kyrie Irving, James Harden, and Kevin Durant working well together, doing what's individually best for the team, it's over. GG. There ain't no way around it. With that talent, and if you got those guys playing in their roles, if you can get Kyrie Irving to say, you know what, I'm going to take a step back. Remember, Kyrie Irving, he left Cleveland. He left LeBron because he wanted to be the alpha dog on his own team. Now he's the fucking third star on his own team. Can Kyrie Irving accept that? We've seen him take a backseat to superstars before. He's played with LeBron James. He won a championship with LeBron James, and he was really good with LeBron James. The best we've seen Kyrie Irving is with another megastar. Now he's got 2 of them. They're not as good as LeBron James was back then, but it's still a megastar. He's got 2 megastars to play with. Let's see what Kyrie Irving. If Kyrie Irving can take a step back, say, you know what, I'm going to be that third string. I'm going to be that third wheel. I can go out there. I can get you 30. I can get you 35 a night when you need me. But I'm more than comfortable of dropping 15 or 20 points in a game. If Kyrie Irving can be humble enough and can realize that that's what's best for the team, is over. And if Harden can start playing without the basketball, because that's been the main thing. Chris Paul's main complaint with James Harden is when Chris Paul was running the offense, James Harden would just sit in the corner and not really be involved. What's James Harden going to do? Is he going to be setting the screens? Is he going to be making the cuts? What's James Harden going to do off the basketball? And when he has the basketball, this man's led the league in assists before. He was leading the league in assists earlier this year. He's second right now to Nikola Jokic. Can James Harden become more of a playmaker? Because we know he can. We know Harden can be a playmaker. But we also know Harden can go out there and get you 60 points in a game. That's the thing. Does he know when his teammates are struggling? When KD's having an off night? When Kyrie's having an off night? Okay, now's the time where I go crazy. Now's the time where I start hitting the step back shots. But if KD's got it clicking and Kyrie's got it clicking, this is the time where you drive and you kick it out to your shooters. You let the guys who are hot stay hot. And Kevin Durant, I've got no worries with Kevin Durant. I don't think anyone does. If something's going wrong with this team, it's not KD. It's Kyrie or James Harden. One of those two guys. And remember, I think a very good fourth piece that the Brooklyn Nets have here is Joe Harris. That man's a sniper. He is an absolute sniper. Similar to what Ray Allen was with the Miami Heat Big Three. You know, back when LeBron, D Wade, Chris Bosh were all together. Joe Harris is that Ray Allen player. He is a fucking sniper. And don't let him get hot. Because just like I said Kyrie, he can go for 35. Harden can go for 50, 60. We know what KD can do. He'll get you 40. He'll get you 30 on a regular basis. But Joe Harris is that guy. You know, he might be kind of playing the Klay Thompson role here. He's not as good as Klay Thompson, but we know shooters can get hot in the league. Now, I don't think Joe Harris can get as hot as Klay Thompson can get hot, but he can definitely go crazy in a quarter. He can definitely go nuts in the first half. Joe Harris, he's playing a very big role, I think, in this team. Because if all those three players, because we saw that happen in Golden State. We saw Draymond, we saw Steph Curry and Kevin Durant especially. We saw when those two guys weren't having their night, when they didn't have it all clicking, they just give it out to Klay Thompson and he'll get you 30 in the first half. You know what I mean? He'll get you 15 in the big third quarter. And Joe Harris, I think he plays a big role in this team because when stuff's not working for the big three, if Joe Harris, he's the kind of guy who can keep this team in the ball game. He's the kind of guy he'll go 7 of 8 from downtown and kind of keep the Brooklyn Nets in a big playoff game. I think Joe Harris plays a massive role on this team. Now, he doesn't play as big of a role. And you know what? No, I'm not even going to say that. I was going to say he doesn't play as big of a role as he did before the Harden trade, but I disagree. I think he might even play a bigger role right now. Just a straight up sniper. If Joe Harris goes cold, if Joe Harris turns into what Danny Green turned into last year, the Brooklyn Nets have no chance of winning, I don't think. He's always that guy who's you can kick it out. Because Harden, Kyrie, KD, they draw double teams, and you better not double off Joe Harris. You better not double off Joe Harris. Similar to when Michael Jordan was playing with Steve Kerr. People wonder why Steve Kerr's 3-point percentage is so high. Because he was shooting open threes. It was no contested threes. It was no step back threes. When Steve Kerr was shooting threes, they were wide the fuck open. Why? Because zones weren't allowed back in the day. So Michael Jordan was getting double teamed. And with that Bulls team, you're not going to double team off Rodman in the paint. You're not going to double team off Scottie Pippen. You're not going to double team off fucking Tony Kukoc or whatever the fuck. You're going to double team off the 6'1" white guy who is skinny and scrawny and doesn't look good at all. And you kick it out to Steve Kerr and he's wide open and stroking threes. Staying in Brooklyn, you're not going to double off KD. You're not going to double off DeAndre Jordan in the paint. You're not going to double off Kyrie. Now you can play zone now. When you do bring double team, chances are you're going to double team off Joe Harris. Or you don't. Or you let James Harden cook your defender. Or you let Kyrie cook your defender. Or you let KD cook your defender. Those are my thoughts on the Brooklyn Nets. I've got their ceiling. The ceiling for Brooklyn is the first seed and a championship. If you told me that Brooklyn won the NBA championship this year, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think anyone in the world would be surprised. And I've got the floor for Brooklyn as a 3 seed in the East and 3rd round exit. Moving on to the Indiana Pacers. The Pacers, I'm a big Caris LeVert fan. I'm a big LeVert fan, and I said earlier that it's a little bit of a risk to get rid of Victor Oladipo, but they got LeVert back. And Caris LeVert, as of right now, I'll take LeVert over Victor Oladipo. He's going to start going crazy in Indiana. And I'm gonna say this right now. I could see the Pacers playing in the third round of the playoffs. I could see the Pacers winning 2 rounds in that tough Eastern Conference. This is a real contender in the East now. They kind of snuck up out of nowhere. We weren't really expecting to see this out of Domantas Sabonis. Miles Turner putting up 4.2 blocks a game right now in 13 games. 4.2 blocks a game. That's more than 6 teams as a whole. Like 6 teams in the NBA aren't blocking four shots a game in the NBA. Miles Turner's doing that shit by himself. He's got 8 blocks in 2 separate games recently, or this year. Last game he played, he got 4 blocks. The game before that, he got 6. He's not slowing down. It's not like he got a shit ton at the beginning of the year and now he's starting to balance out. No, he got a shit ton at the beginning of the year and he's still getting a shit ton. It's not slowing down for Miles Turner. Do I think he's going to end the year on the 4 blocks game? Of course not. But for now, we know he's an elite shot blocker in the NBA. I already mentioned Domantas Sabonis. He's solidified himself as the best player in the Indiana Pacers. The way he can score, rebound, and facilitate even. He is cementing himself on the Indiana Pacers. I've always said it. The big 3 guys, the fantasy demigods. You know, I'm in a fantasy league right now with a few other people on TikTok, a few other basketball guys on TikTok. I literally auto drafted all my picks. And by the way, I'm saying this, I'm not trying to be cocky. I'm not going to do very good in this league, but my entire team got auto picked because I forgot when the draft was, but I made sure that I was going to have Jokic, Sabonis, and Valanciunas on my team. Those 3 guys, fantasy demigods. Sabonis, Valanciunas, and Jokic. White and tall. You're good. You're good to go. And Domantas Sabonis has been balling out. He's been going crazy this year. And Caris LeVert, what he was doing in Brooklyn coming off the bench, he was electric. What the fuck was that? He was electric coming off the bench. And he's going to be playing a big role in this Pacer team. And I could see them winning a playoff series or 2 in the Eastern Conference. I've got their ceiling at a 2 seed in the East and the third round exit. And I've got their floor at a 6 seed in the East and a first round exit. And finally, the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cavaliers, I already mentioned, the Cavaliers as of right now, there is no question as to whether they won or lost by being involved in this trade. All the other teams is like, all right, if Brooklyn doesn't win, they shouldn't have made this trade. If the Rockets, if they don't get a good future and if they just are mediocre for the next few years, they shouldn't have done this trade. If the Indiana Pacers, if Caris LeVert doesn't work out and Victor Oladipo goes crazy in Houston, they shouldn't have done this trade. But the Cleveland Cavaliers, they gave up Dante Exum in a first-round pick that wasn't even theirs, that belonged to the Milwaukee Bucks, and in return, they somehow got Taurean Prince and Jared Allen, 2 starters on the Brooklyn Nets. They've already won this trade. There's nothing to be determined. With all the 3 other teams, there's stuff to be determined. It's like, okay, if this happens and this happens, then they've won the trade. But if this happens and that happens, they've lost the trade. The Cleveland Cavaliers, it's over. They did it. They won this trade. Now it's going to be interesting to see what they can get for Andre Drummond. And the Cavaliers, man, I don't know how the fuck they did it. But, you know, if they were making moves like this back when LeBron James was on that team in like 2008, 2009, LeBron would have definitely stayed, man. LeBron would have stayed if they were making moves like this. You know, and I'm not calling Allen and Taurean Prince like franchise players. I'm just saying if they're finessing deals the way they just finessed that one. LeBron's staying, man. He's got to stay, bro. But yeah, I mean, that's the Cleveland Cavaliers. I've got their ceiling as a 9 seed in the Eastern Conference and a first round exit. Remember, with the play-in tournament, if you're a 9 or 10 seed, you can play or challenge the fucking 7 and 8 seed to make the playoffs. I see their ceiling as a first round exit. I could see this team getting swept in the first round by the Brooklyn Nets. And I see their floor as being a 12 seed. I've got a 12 seed written down here, but I could see a 13, 14 seed really in the Eastern Conference. And yeah, that's the James Harden trade. That's the James Harden trade. I want to know what you guys think about that trade. Because honestly, it's a blockbuster. And when you look at the greatest big 3s of all time, as far as the most talented big 3s of all time go, as like if you combine the 3 players, you know, the 3 greatest to ever be put together, I mean, some of those old Celtic teams back when, the Bob Cousy, Bill Russell days. Of course, you look at a team like the Boston Celtics, McHale, Bird, and Robert Parrish, or you look at the Bulls teams, of course, MJ, Pippen, and Dennis Rodman, or the Lakers teams, the Showtime Lakers, James Worthy, Kareem, Magic. When you look at those teams like that, I mean, this Brooklyn Nets team, they don't have any of the championships that they do, but they've got the talent that those teams do. And more recently, Duncan, Ginobili, Parker, LeBron, Wade, and Chris Bosh. You look at the Brooklyn Nets, they're probably the most talented big three of all time. They really are. I don't think they're not the most talented roster of all time. Most talented roster of all time, I would say, are the Golden State Warriors in 2017, 2018, even 2019. 2019 they are, but 2019 Golden State would be, but they got hurt. So, like, if Boogie and KD were all healthy and Clay was healthy, I mean, that's easily the most talented roster of all time. But when it comes to talent perspective, this is the most talented big three of all time. It really is. And they're doing all they can to get rid or to take down LeBron James in the NBA Finals. Now, I find it a little bit funny. I'm not gonna lie, I find it a little bit funny that I love it when I see LeBron fans, just, oh man, what are you guys doing? Or no, let me restart this thought real quick. I love it when I see LeBron James fans and they're all like, oh my God, they have to do all this to beat LeBron, and they got to form all these super teams to beat LeBron. First of all, you're not wrong. You have to beat LeBron. I mean, you're gonna have to do a lot better than having fucking Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo and those guys hurt. I mean, you're gonna need a super team to beat LeBron James. But this would have never happened. Who was the first guy to make super teams like this? To trade and just make their own super team randomly. It wasn't Michael Jordan back in the day, because he and Scottie Pippen were drafted. The Lakers drafted Magic Johnson and James Worthy. You know what I mean? It was LeBron James. LeBron James is the reason why all these super teams are being made. LeBron formed that one in Miami to get over the hump. And now we're seeing the trickle-down effect. You can't complain that, oh, look at all these super teams that they're making to beat LeBron, when the reason why all these super teams are around is because LeBron James made a super team back 10 years ago, it is now, that now has kind of the trickle-down effect of that has led to super teams like the Golden State Warriors signing Kevin Durant, and now like James Harden and Kyrie and KD being together. It's a trickle-down effect. That shit happens. That's just what that shit happens. The Brooklyn Nets, they made a super team to get past year 18, LeBron James. LeBron made a super team to get past year 16, Tim Duncan. Duncan's not as good as LeBron was in his 16th year, but the same principle applies. LeBron was the first person to make a super team, and now it's come back around that people are making super teams to beat LeBron. And that just speaks to LeBron's greatness. That's nothing against LeBron. I think LeBron's going to beat the super team. I think LeBron's going to take down the Brooklyn Nets this year. As much as I don't want to see that, I think it's going to happen. But I would like to add this real quick. The LA Clippers. The Clippers, man, they are going under the radar this year, and I talked about it a little bit a few days ago when I said the Clippers I don't really trust that much because they seem to always blow these big leads. They get up 20, they get up 30, and then they let the other team back in the game. But let me just pull up the standings real quick in the Western Conference. The Lakers are sitting on 11-3, and the Clippers are a game and a half back at 9-4. I want to make sure we're all understanding right now that the NBA Finals are not set in stone. We've got everybody already talking about and hyping up the NBA Finals this year. Oh, it's going to be the best finals of all time. LeBron versus KD. AD versus Harden and Kyrie. We're all hyping up the NBA Finals this year. Just like, might I remind you, we were all hyping up the Western Conference Finals last year. Kawhi versus LeBron. PG versus AD. We were all hyping that shit up, and what happened? The old Denver Nuggets with Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray snuck their way into the Western Conference Finals. Now, the Clippers have a big chance here of playing spoilers. I don't think they will. I don't think the Clippers are going to beat the Lakers. But if the Clippers and Lakers meet in the Western Conference Finals or the Western Conference Semifinals, or if they meet in the playoffs, this is not going to be a quick series. I'm going to say that right now. The Clippers are going under the radar right now. No one's talking about them. No one's talking about the LA Clippers. No one's talking about them. Ain't nobody give a fuck. Kawhi and Paul George, they've been labeled playoff chokers now. They've been labeled playoff chokers. Lou Will, Serge Ibaka. No one's talking about this Clippers team anymore. No one's bringing it up. Paul George has been going off. No one's bringing it up. Kawhi has been going off. No one's bringing it up. They're going under the radar, and if the Clippers meet the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals or whenever they meet, this is a 6 or 7 game series, and the Clippers have a legitimate chance of making the finals this year. They do. The Clippers are still a real contender in the NBA. As much as you don't want to admit that, as much as you want to say, it's the Clippers are going to choke, you have to acknowledge the fact that this is still a very good basketball team, and a team that has beat the Lakers 3 out of the last 5 times they've played, not including preseason. And those are all regular season games, okay? But you have to acknowledge the fact that Clippers versus the Lakers, that's going to be a long series. That's not a 4-game series. That's not a 5-game series. I wouldn't even think that's a 6-game series. Kawhi Leonard versus LeBron James, that's something we all want to see. And it wouldn't even surprise me if the Clippers beat the Lakers. If the Clippers go to the NBA Finals. There are 3 real contenders in the NBA right now. The Nets, the Lakers, and the Clippers. The Clippers are still in there. As much as you don't want to admit that, the LA Clippers are still a very talented team, led by a very talented player in Kawhi Leonard, who is a big-time playoff player. He had his moment. He had his playoff choke last year. He had his LeBron James 2011 playoff choke last year. He had his Kobe Bryant versus Utah Jazz in 1999, whatever it was, when he airballed that shot. He had that moment last year. He choked. Just like all the other superstars, they all have that one moment. He had his Kobe 2004 NBA Finals last year. He choked. Straight, plain and simple. Just like all the other superstars that come before him, other than the GOAT Michael Jordan. They've all let their teams down in the playoffs. They've all choked. Kawhi had that moment last year. That doesn't mean he's a choker now. That means that I think this year he's going to go crazy in the playoffs. He is going to go crazy in the playoffs. By the way, I do want to mention this real quick. The Lakers are 9-1 in their last 10 games. They've won 5 games in a row. The one team that they lost to in the last 10 games were the Spurs. I just want to mention that. I just want to make sure we all know that. Yeah, Spurs, baby, let's go. But real quick though, let's take a look here. The top 3 teams in the Western Conference. Utah Jazz, man, they're looking pretty good. Rudy Gobert, he's looking pretty good. They won 4 in a row. The Jazz are the Jazz are clicking. The Jazz are clicking right now. Yeah. There's not a lot else that I have to say on this episode of the Off the Dome podcast. If you've made it to the end, thank you. I appreciate you. Mike Dean, Kanye, take them to church, baby.
Let me get more volume. Da, da.